See what's going on. Alright, we're back after a couple of days. What just happened? Alright, he had his... We've been listening to Marmaladov or whatever his name is. And his fucking life. And now... the protagonists, for some reason, decides to help him home because Marmaladov is so drunk. Alright. Man. Very alcoholic. It is not Katerina Ivanovna I'm afraid of now, he muttered in agitation. And that she will begin pulling my hair? What does my hair matter? Bother my hair. That's what I say. Indeed, it will be better if she does begin pulling it. That's not what I'm afraid of. It's her eyes I'm afraid of. Yes, her eyes. The red on her cheeks, too, frightens me. And her breathing, too. Have you noticed how people that in that disease breathe when they are excited? I'm frightened of the children crying, too. For if Sonia has not taken them food... has not brought them food. I don't know what happened, I don't know, but blows I am not afraid of. Blows I'm not afraid of. No, sir, that such blows are not a pain to me, but even an enjoyment. In fact, I can't get on without it. It's better so. Let her strike me. It relieves her heart. It's better so. There is the house. The house of a Kozel. The cabinet maker, a German. Well-to-do. Lead the way. This dude is so fucked up. They went in from the yard and up to the 4th story. The staircase got darker and darker as they went up. It was nearly 11 o'clock, and although in summer in Petersburg there is no real light, no real night, yet it was quite dark at the top of the stairs. A grimy little door at the very top of the stairs stood ajar. A very poor-looking room, about 10 paces long, was lighted up by candle end. The whole of it was visible from the entrance. It was all in disorder, littered up with rags of all sorts, especially children's garments. Across the furthest corner was stretched a ragged sheet. Behind it probably was the bed. There was nothing in the room except 2 chairs and a sofa covered with American leather, full of holes, before which... the chairs, before which stood an old deal kitchen table, unpainted and uncovered. At the edge of the table stood a smoldering tallow candle in an iron candlestick. It appeared that the family had room themselves, not part of a room. But their room was practically a passage. There we go. Their room was practically a passage. The door leading to the other rooms, or rather cupboards, into which Amalia Lipoveshev's flat was divided, stood half open. And there was shouting, uproar and laughter within. People seemed to be playing cards and drinking tea there. Words of the most unceremonious kind flew out from time to time. Raskolnikov recognized Katerina Ivanovna at once. She was a rather tall, slim and graceful woman, terribly emaciated, with Alright, but what's this? Wonder if I screwed up the dictionary because I've been working with it. No, it still works, alright. Very thin, especially from disease or hunger or cold. Emaciated. Bony hands. Alright. Yeah, that was the woman, right? Katerina Ivanovna. Where the pawn shop. She's having the pawn shop, right? Yeah. So he just ends up here again. Well, no thank you.
I hate my friends, I hate school, but most of all, I hate you. Hate the smile on your face, and I hate that I miss you. Hate the sun.
I mean, this song seems nice, but it's gonna be annoying. I can't, when the lyrics are that pronounced, I can't read. They have to be less pronounced indeed. Alright, and man's emaciated with magnificent dark brown hair with a hectic flush in her cheeks. Oh, hello, Blasphemous. Nice to see you again. How are you doing today? He laughs at something. The lyrics thing? She was pacing up and down in her little room, pressing her hands against her chest. Her lips were parched, and her breathing came in nervous, broken gasps. Her eyes glittered as in fever and looked about with harsh, immovable stare. And that previous song title, oh, I hate everything, I hate my friends, something like that. Yeah. Hate my friends. It sounded like it could be an alright song as well. I listened to that, by the way, the Depression song, the Depression album that you tipped the other way as well, Blasphemous. I really enjoyed it from an artistic standpoint, but it's not something I will listen to again. I don't think it was... It's surprisingly too emotional. I couldn't deal. I got triggered by it. I really liked it, but yeah, I got... I don't know if triggered is the right word, but yeah. Flashback to... Yeah, human equals garbage. That's what I listen to. Both the song and the album. It evoked flashbacky memories that I was not really in the mood for. I probably won't listen to it again, even though it was good stuff. Good stuff indeed. That consumptive and excited face with the last flickering light of the candle end playing upon it made a sickening impression. How are you doing today, by the way, Glassmas? Everything all right? Sickening, eh? She seemed to Raskolnikov about 30 years old and was certainly a strange wife for Marmeladov. She had not heard them and did not notice them coming in. She seemed to be lost in thought, hearing and seeing nothing. The room was closed, but she had not opened the window. A stench rose from the inner staircase, but the door onto the stairs was not closed. Lasman says, I'm eating pretzel bites. Nice. The ones without the salt? Oh, that made me hungry for some reason. I don't get hungry very often nowadays. Now I've just felt like, oh man, I really want to eat. Yeah, it's another hour until then. Blasphemous says, yeah, no salt. Did you take extra salt on the side and add it yourself, or just living without salt? Pretzels without salt, it feels weird. From the inner rooms, clouds of tobacco smoke floated in. She kept coughing but did not close the door. The youngest child, a girl of 6, was asleep, sitting curled up on the floor with her head on a sofa. Boy, a year older, stood crying and shaking in the corner, probably had just had a beating. Beside him stood a girl of 9 years old, tall and thin, wearing I just thought of the author style, right? We get to know how old the children are. He wouldn't have noticed, right? Raskolnikov would not have noticed how old they were. He probably would not have remembered from Marmeladov's monologue either. Maybe. Blasphemous hearts, female smokers. Oh, wow. I mean, I can look at pictures, right? There could be artistic pictures of people smoking. I like that. But personally, I don't like... I wouldn't want to date someone who was smoking. To each their own. To each their own. Right, wearing a thin and ragged chemise? Oh, that's just clothes. With an ancient cashmere pelisse flung over her bare shoulders, long outgrown and barely reaching her knees. Blasphemous says, I don't like it when they taste like ashtray. To each their own. That would not be for me, no. Where was I? Ah, here we go. She was trying to comfort him, whispering something to him, and doing all she could to keep him from whimpering again. At the same time, her large dark eyes, which looked larger still from the thinness of her frightened face, were watching her mother with alarm. Marmeladov did not enter the door, but dropped on his knees in the very doorway, pushing Raskolnikov in front of him. That's weird. Alright, some inspiration from Blasphemous here. Stay focused on your breath while thinking about how it is square to be awful, but it's not square to be awful. Stay focused on your breath, that's always a good inspirational thing. Good quote. We're probably gonna get that soon. Right up there. Something telling us to breathe. Yeah. While thinking about how it is square to be awful, but it is not square to be awful. Yeah, that's just dumb. That's the bot just... Right. You can't read an intent to that. The woman, seeing a stranger, stopped indifferently, facing him, coming to herself for a moment and apparently wondering what he had come for. Will there be a blink reminder? Not until... Not until... I'll try at lenses, whenever I do that in the future. But evidently she decided that he was going into the next room, as he had to pass through hers to get there. Taking no further notice of him, she walked towards the outer door to close it and uttered a sudden scream on seeing her husband on his knees in the doorway. "Ah!" she cried out in frenzy. "He has come back, the criminal, the monster. And where is the
They
money?"
put oxygen masks on planes so you can breathe. Oxygen gets you high.
Oxygen gets you high. Time to breathe. The criminal, the monster, and where's the money? What's in your pocket? Show me. And your clothes are all different. Where are your clothes? Where's the money? Speak. Blasphemous says Fight Club, and then he makes that icon, the heart icon. Yeah, that's another movie to rewatch. It's a great movie. Great movie. Yeah, if you have some other tips on stuff to add, like clips. The theme is that I want like a deep breath reminder, and it can be as vague as oxygen makes you high. That's a reminder to breathe, right? If you have any other ideas to add, I'm happy to add them to the list of clips. Just 5-second clips. 5-second clips of something. And she fell to searching him. Marmeladov submissively and obediently held up both arms to facilitate the search. Not a farthing was there. "Where's the money?" she cried. "Mercy on us. Can he have drunk it all?" There were 12 silver rubles left in the chest. And in a fury she seized him by the hair and dragged him into the room. Marmeladov seconded her effort by meekly crawling along on his knees. "And this is a consolation to me. This does not hurt me, but it is a positive consolation. Honored sir," he called out, shaken... Wait. Honored sir, he called out, shaken to and fro by his hair, and even once... Oh, now I get it. The beating is a consolation. That's what he's shouting about. "And this is a consolation to me. This does not hurt me, but it is a positive consolation, honored sir," he called out, shaken to and fro by his hair, and even once striking the ground with his forehead. Wow. The child asleep on the floor woke up and began crying. The boy in the corner, losing all control, began trembling and screaming, and rushed to his sister in violent terror, almost in a fit. The eldest girl was shaking like a leaf. He's drunk it all," the poor woman screamed in despair, "and his clothes are gone, and they are hungry. And wringing her hands, she pointed to the children. "Oh, accursed life! And you, are you not ashamed?" She pounced all at once upon Raskolnikov. "From the tavern, have you been drinking with him? You have been drinking with him too. Go away. Fuck off." The young man was hastening away without uttering a word. The inner door was thrown wide open, and inquisitive faces were peering in at it. Coarse, laughing faces with pipes and cigarettes, and heads wearing caps thrust themselves into the doorway. Further in could be seen figures in dressing gowns flung open, in costumes of unseemly scantiness. Actually, I'm not 100% sure about that. Quality of being meager. Yeah. It's we're in the slums, right? That's what they're called. The modern term for where we are. some of them with cards in their hands. They were particularly diverted when Marmeladov, dragged about by his hair, shouted that it was a consolation to him. They even began to come into the room. At last a sinister, shrill outcry was heard. This came from Amalia Leppencheval herself, pushing her way amongst them and trying to restore order after her own fashion, and for the 100th time to frighten the poor woman by ordering her with coarse abuse to clear out of the room the next day. Oh.
You came into my life so unexpected. I guess it's destiny. You know you're just my type.
Alright, we don't want to hear this pronounced singing. No, thank you. As he went out, Raskolnikov had time to put his hand into his pocket, to snatch up the coppers he had received in exchange for his ruble in the tavern, and to lay them unnoticed on the window. Huh. Afterwards, on the stairs, he changed his mind and would have gone back. Yep, that makes sense. What a stupid thing I've done, he thought to himself. They have Sonia and I want it myself, but reflecting that it would be impossible to take it back now, and that in any case he would not have taken it, he dismissed it with a wave of his hand and went back to his lodging. Sonia wants pomatum too, he said as he walked along the street, and he laughed malignantly. Such smartness costs money. And maybe Sonia herself will bankrupt today, for there's always the risk, hunting big game, digging for gold. Then they would be without a crust tomorrow, except for my money. Hurrah for Sonia. What a mine they've dug there, and they're making the most of it. Yes, they are making the most of it. Are they though? They've wept over it and grown used to it. Man grows used to everything, the scoundrel. He sank into thought. And what if I'm wrong, he cried suddenly after a moment's thought. What if a man is not really a scoundrel? Man in general, I mean. The whole race of mankind, then all the rest is prejudice, simply artificial terrors, and there are no barriers, and it's all as it should be. Wait, I gotta take this one more time. And what if I'm wrong? He cried suddenly after a moment's thought. What if man is not really a scoundrel? Man in general, I mean. The whole race of mankind. Then all the rest is prejudice. Simply artificial terrors, and there are no barriers, and it is all as it should be. That's an interesting viewpoint. I wouldn't come to that conclusion. It's like that sounds like the like when you hear religious people saying that atheists have no morals, right? Just because there are no barriers, no God to stop us, right? That's the argument he's making, right? Is he arguing that is really... Oh. No, he's not arguing. That is him. That is him justifying his future actions to himself. That is what's happening. This is not a philosophical statement. This is a psychological thing. He's convincing himself at whoever he's robbing, and like, fuck the children, fuck everybody else. I should only look out for number one. That's what he's doing, right? He's convincing himself. He's probably still have had that thought, just rummaging around in his brain. But I guess relative morals leads to that situation, I suppose. Well, that, but it's not even that. It's not even ethics itself. It's the lack of ethics. The whole point of ethics is how to behave in regards towards other people, right? All the ethical guidelines that has ever been written aren't they all, well, not all of them, but most of them, aren't they just don't, and some don't do that. Stuff like that. Yeah, barriers. And those barriers, that is what he's doing. He's tearing those barriers down psychologically for himself. He had a code of ethics and he's tearing it down. Not rebuilding it, not replacing it, just leaving a void. I guess that would be what you would have to do, right? Tearing down. Because there are probably some behaviors that, yeah, of course, everybody I think have like their own code where they would have to break down these barriers, these guidelines for oneself psychologically before taking a planned action to do something. Actually, that's an interesting question. I'm not even sure about that. It says that, like, it's all post hoc, all the rationalization. First you act, then. This is just a book as well, so far it's been pretty spot on. I've never been in the situation where I've done that myself. Like, just trying to remove codes of ethics. And I'm trying to replace and build and stuff like that, but just tearing them down. Don't know. I can't relate. That's it. I can't relate to it. Right, we're at chapter 3. He waked up late next day after a broken sleep. Why did that change? If it used to be waked up, that follows the norm, right? Of how to bend by the tenses. Why did it change to woke? Like in breaking off from the norm, from the standard. I always thought that like language that broke from the standard bending of words, that they had done that for a long time and just stuck that way. Not going from being part of the standard and then moving away from it. Right, he waked up late the next day after a broken sleep, but his sleep had not refreshed him. He waked up bilious, irritable, ill-tempered, and looked with hatred at his room. It was a tiny cupboard of a room, about 6 paces in length. It had a poverty-stricken appearance with its dusty yellow paper peeling off the walls. And it was so low-pitched that a man of more than average height was ill at ease in it and felt every moment that he would knock his head against the ceiling. Rough stuff. The furniture was in keeping with the room. There were old chairs, rather rickety, a painted table in the corner on which lay a few manuscripts and books. The dust that lay thick upon them showed that they had been long untouched. A big clumsy sofa occupied the whole of one wall and half of the floor space of the room. It was once covered with chains. Brightly printed in glazed cotton fabric. But was now in rags and served Raskolnikov as a bed. Often he went to sleep on it, as he was without undressing, without sheets. As he was, without undressing, without sheets, wrapped in his old student's overcoat, with his head on a little pillow under which he heaped up all the linen he had, clean and dirty, by the way of a bolster. A little table stood in front of the sofa. It would have been difficult to sink to a lower ebb of disorder, but to Raskolnikov, in his present state of mind, this was positively agreeable. He had got completely away from everyone, like a tortoise? Man, I can't pronounce that. Tortoise. In its shell, and even the sight of a servant girl who had to wait upon him and looked He had got completely away from everyone, like a tortoise in its shell, and even the sight of a servant girl who had to wait, like a waiter, not wait like in waiting for him to do something, had to wait upon him and looked sometimes into his room, made him writhe with nervous irritation. He was in the condition that overtakes some monomaniacs, entirely concentrating upon one thing. Monomaniacs. Nice, I like that. His landlady had for the last fortnight given up sending him in meals, and he had not yet thought of expostulating with her. Expostulating, eh? Expostulate. Alright. Expostulate, picky. Of expostulator, to demand vehemently. Ask, require, to reason earnestly with a person on some impropriety of his conduct, representing the wrong he has done or intends, and urging him to make redress or desist. Wait. So he went without his dinner. Ah, I get it. He had not been pissy about not getting any dinner. There we go. Not yet, anyway. Nastasia, the cook and only servant, was rather pleased at the lodger's mood and had entirely given up sweeping and doing his room. Only once a week or so she would stray into his room with a broom. Nice. She waked him up on that day. "Get up, why are you asleep?" she called to him. "It is past 9, I have brought you some tea. Will you have a cup? I should think you're fairly starving?" Raskolnikov opened his eyes, started and recognized Nastasia. "From the landlady, he asked, slowly and with a sickly face, sitting up on the sofa. "From the landlady, indeed." She set before him her own cracked teapot full of weak and stale tea, and laid 2 yellow lumps of sugar by the side of it. "Here, Nastasia, take it, please," he said, fumbling in his pocket, for he had slept in his clothes, and taken out a handful of coppers. "Run and buy me a loaf, and get me a little sausage, the cheapest, at the pork's butcher's. The loaf I'll fetch you this very minute, but wouldn't you rather have some cabbage soup instead of sausage?" "It's capital soup, yesterday's. I saved it for you yesterday, but you came in late. It's a fine soup." When the soup had been brought, and he had begun upon it, Nastasia sat down beside him on the sofa and began chatting. She was a country peasant woman, and a very talkative one. "Praskovya Pavlovna means to complain to the police about you," she said. "Oof, that sucks, eh?" He scowled. "To the police? What does she want?" You don't pay her money, and you won't turn out of the room. That's what she wants, to be sure." "The devil, that's the last straw," he muttered, grinding his teeth. "No, that would not suit me just now. She's a fool," he added aloud. "I'll go and talk to her today." Wait, so his attitude is he has not demanded vehemently to get his dinners from her, right? And she's being a terrible landlady, and he's not paying her? So he will get all pissy about it, even though he is not paying. Fool she is, and no mistake, just as I am. But why, if you are so clever, do you lie here like a sack and have nothing to show for it? One time you used to go out, you say, to teach children. But why is it that you do nothing now? I am doing... Raskolnikov began sullenly and reluctantly. What are you doing? Work. What sort of work? I'm thinking, he answered seriously after a pause. Nastasia was overcome with a fit of laughter. She was given to laughter, and when anything amused her, she laughed inaudibly, quivering and shaking all over till she fell ill. Wow. "And have you made much money by your thinking?" she managed to articulate at last. Oh man. That's the gut punch, eh? One can't go out to give lesson without boots, and I'm sick of it. Don't quarrel with your bread and butter. They pay so little for lessons. What's the use of a few coppers? He answered reluctantly, as though replying to his own thought. And you want to get a fortune all at once? He looked at her strangely. Yes, I want a fortune, he answered firmly after a brief pause. Don't be in such a hurry. You quite frighten me. Shall I get you the loaf or not? As you please. Ah, I forgot. A letter came for you yesterday when you were out. A letter from me? From whom? I can't say. I gave 3 kopecks of my own to the postman for it. Will you pay me back? Then bring it to me, for God's sake, bring it, cried Raskolnikov, greatly excited. Good God! A minute later the letter was brought him. That was it, from his mother, from the province of He turned pale when he took it. It was a long while since he had received a letter, but another feeling also suddenly stabbed his heart. Nastasya, leave me alone, for goodness sake. Here are you 3 kopecks, but for goodness sake, make haste and go. The letter was quivering in his hand. He did not want to open it in her presence. He wanted to be left alone with this letter. When Natasha had gone out, he lifted it quickly to his lips and kissed it. Then he gazed intently at the address, the small sloping handwriting, so dear and familiar, of the mother who had once taught him to read and write. He delayed. He seemed almost afraid of something. At last he opened it. It was a thick, heavy letter weighing over 2 ounces. 2 large sheets of note paper were covered with very small handwriting. My dear Rodya, wrote his mother, it's 2 months since I last had a talk with you by letter, which has distressed me and even kept me awake at night thinking. But I am sure you will not blame me for my inevitable silence. You know how I love you. You are all we have to look to, Donia and I. You are our all, our one hope, our one stay. What a grief it was to me when I heard you had given up the university some months ago, for want of means to keep yourself, and that you had lost your lessons and your other work. How could I help you out of my 120 rubles a year pension? The 15 rubles I sent you 4 months ago I borrowed, as you know, on security of my pension from Vasily Ivanovich Vashrushin, the merchant of this town. He is a kind-hearted man and was a friend of your father's too, but having given him the right to receive the pension, he had to wait till the debt was paid off, and that is only just done. So that I've been unable to send you anything all this time, but now, thank God, I believe I shall be able to send you something more, and in fact we may congratulate ourselves on our good fortunes now, of which I hasten to inform you. Oh? In the first place, would you have guessed, dear Rodya, that your sister has been living with me for the last 6 weeks? And we shall not be separated in the future, thank God. Her sufferings are over. But I will tell you everything in order, so that you may know just how everything has happened, and all that we have hitherto concealed from you. Oh, secrets! Secrets! Exciting stuff. Right, this is a long letter. This would actually be a new paragraph, eh? Yeah, new paragraph would have been great right here. When you wrote me 2 months ago that you had heard that Donia had a great deal to put up with in the Svidrigalov's house, when you wrote and asked me to tell you all about it, what could I write in answer to you? If I had written the whole truth to you, I dare say you would have thrown up everything and come to us, even if you had to walk all the way. For I know your character and your feelings, and you would not let your sister be insulted. I was in despair myself, but what could I do? And besides, I did not know the whole truth myself then. What made it all so difficult was that Donia received 100 rubles in advance when she took the place as a governess in their family, on condition of part of her salary being deducted every month, and so it was impossible to throw up the situation without paying the debt. This sum, now I can explain it all to you, my precious Rodya, she took chiefly in order to send you 60 rubles, which you needed so terribly then and which you received from us last year. We deceived you then, writing that all this money came from Dunia's savings, but that was not so, and now I tell you all about it, because, thank God, things have suddenly changed for the better, and that you may know how Donia loves you, and what a heart she has. At first, indeed, Mr. Svargridadalov treated her very rudely and used to make disrespectful and jeering remarks at table. But I don't want to get into all those painful details, so as not to worry you for nothing when it is all over. In short, in spite of the kind and generous behavior of Marfa Petrovna, Mr. Svidragovilov's wife, Marfa Petrovna, and the rest of the household, Dunia had a very hard time, especially when Mr. Svidragolov, relapsing into his old regimental habits, was under the influence of Bacchus. Oh, a lot of alcoholism going around, eh? Alcoholism all over the place. And how do you think it was all explained later on? Would you believe that the crazy fellow had conceived a passion for Donia from the beginning, but had concealed it under a show of rudeness and contempt? Yeah, I could believe that, yeah. Possibly he was ashamed and horrified himself at his own flighty hopes, considering his years and his being the father of a family, and that made him angry with Dunia. Right. Falling in love with the help, eh? Huh. Oh, hello, Coleman122. Nice to see you again. It says drippity drip. How have you been doing? How's life treating you? What have you been up to? Reading Crime and Punishment. Yeah. Right. Yeah, Crime and Punishment. That's the name of the book. Oh man, Goose. Coleman says I've been doing okay. Great stuff. Great stuff. It's always nice to do okay. Asking for more is, I don't know, probably a mistake, I guess. Alright, where are we? And possibly too, he hoped his rude and sneering behavior to hide the truth from others. But at last he lost all control and had the face to make Donia an open and shameful proposal, proposing her all sorts of inducements and offerings, besides to throw up everything and to take her to another state of his, or even abroad.
Maybe he did something right, something everybody else in history done wrong.
Maybe.
What, like eat the food, drink the water, and breathe the air?
Coleman wanted to choose this. It's better to be okay and sometimes get sad than to be happy and then get sad. It's better to be okay and sometimes get sad than being happy and then get sad. Feels bad, man. I don't know. You go like this, right? You have your ups and downs. We can flatten that curve. I don't know. I've heard people with bipolar have that problem because their curve goes like this, right? We can just snap and go up and down just like that. They miss those highs. That's to each their own, I suppose. For me, I'm more happy with a flattened curve. Yeah, a little bit of happiness, a little bit of sadness. Rather than, yeah. But I understand that other people want it the other way. And that's fine. I guess. For them, I guess. You can imagine all she went through. To leave her situation at once was impossible, not only to account of the money debt, but also to spare the feelings of Marfa Petrovna, whose suspicions would have been aroused, and then Donia would have been the case of a rupture in the family, and it would have meant a terrible scandal for Donia too. That would have been inevitable. There were various other reasons owing to which Donia would not hope to escape from that awful house for another 6 weeks. You know Donia, of course. You know how clever she is and what strong will she has. Donia can endure a great deal, and even in the most difficult cases, she has the fortitude to maintain her firmness. Coleman 122 says Leet? Wait, who is Leet? Is Donia Leet? She did not even write to me about everything for fear of upsetting me, although we were constantly in communication. It all ended very unexpectedly. Marfa Petrovna accidentally overheard her husband imploring Donia in the garden and putting quite a wrong interpretation on the position, threw the blame upon her, believing her to be the cause of it all. Of course. That is so interesting to me. That is what happens on TV. I don't know how it is in real life, but in all the stories, and it kind of makes some sort of sense, right? I'm assuming that is the way it happens in real life as well. That when your spouse, your partner, cheats on you, you start blaming the person who seduced them. And that makes sense, right? From a coping mechanism, right? Because if you blame your partner, then it's about your partner and you. It might be about you. It's not about this evil hag or whatever that seduced your partner. Then it's your partner and your mind will go to that space where it's like, don't they love me anymore? It's easier to forgive, right? It's very difficult. I'm assuming it's very difficult to forgive someone cheating on you like that. That betrayal stings like hell. So maybe it's like protection for yourself, that if you would put the blame on the partner, then the where you might lead down to would be a breakup. And breakups are fucking annoying and you really don't want to deal with it. Maybe it does make sense that you blame the stranger and have all your hate towards the stranger. It's way easier to hate a stranger than someone you live with and spend years living with, right? Alright. An awful scene took place between them on the spot in the garden. Marfa Petrovna went so far as to strike Donia, refused to hear anything, and was shocked at her for a whole hour, and then gave orders that Donia should be packed off at once to me in a plain peasant's cart, into which they flung all her things, linen and her clothes, all pell-mell, without folding it up and packing it. Nice. Oh, right. That's like a typical thing in a romantic comedy, right? When they break up, someone is out on the street and they just throw all the clothes out on the street, right? That type of thing. Just get out of here. You're not welcome anymore. Oh, man. That's funny. Right. And a heavy shower of rain came on too, and Donia, insulted and put to shame, had to drive with a peasant in an open cart all the 17 versts into town. Is that a distance thing? Probably a distance thing, right? Versts? Nothing found for versts. Alright. Let's assume it's a distance measurement. Only think now what answer I could have sent to the letter I received from you 2 months ago, and what I could have written. I was in despair. I dared not to write to you the truth, because you would have been very unhappy, mortified and indignant. And yet, what could you do? What could you do? You could only perhaps ruin yourself. Oh, Mom, you're way too late. He's already ruining himself. He's hanging out with Bacchus himself, eh? And besides, Donia would not allow it, and fill up my letter with trifles, when my heart was so full of sorrow. I could not. For a whole month the town was full of gossip about this scandal, and it came to such a pass that Donia and I dared not even go to church on account of the contemptuous looks, whispers, and even the remarks made aloud about us. All our acquaintances avoided us. Nobody even bowed to us in the street. And I learnt that some shopmen and clerks were intending to insult us in a shameful way, smearing the gates of our house with pitch, so that the landlord began to tell us that we must leave. Wow. To all the people that say it was better in the olden days, this is fucked up, isn't it? Holy fuck. We're talking about cultish behavior. Yesterday, I think we talked about cultish behavior. This type of behavior, like cancel culture, right? The whole town, like, just bundles up and starts bullying them. This is fucked up, man. So fucked up. From my point of view, right? I couldn't imagine this happen. The neighbors looking down on you like this. Maybe cancel culture is not such a new phenomenon after all. Maybe it's just started to find its way. Like, it's been typical for human behavior for maybe a long time. Yeah, cancel culture is just bullying, right? Bullying has been a thing a long time. It's just recently we've learned how to do it properly on the internet. Learned how to do proper bullying. Yeah, maybe. Oh, we've learned how to make the town, maybe hundreds of people, maybe thousands, right? Then we started moving into cities, urbanization and all that bit. And that broke up that type of behavior, right? He lives in a situation where that doesn't really happen. You have like small groups of people where this happened. Yeah, right. Marmeladov, when he came back drunk, they were getting thrown out for those types of cancel culture reasons. Oh, he was a drunkard, therefore we throw you out. Because of the shame. You've shamed yourself, sir, and now get the fuck out of my building. Maybe that building and that. Yeah. But with urbanization, that people became anonymous, right? Our tribes became anonymous, so you can't really know everybody that lives around you. That changed the norms during urbanization. That has got to be what happened, right? And instead, bullying, we started talking about bullying. Because where did it happen? It happened in schools and on jobs. Translated to that. Now, with social media being developed and becoming better and better, finally there's a system in place where we could bully, like this type of bullying and cultish behavior, tribalistic behavior, is possible finally in the scales of thousands and perhaps even millions. Well, thousands, hundreds. Well, it's still small groups, right? The bullying that happens. But 1 million people cannot bully you. But it was the same back then, right? Like in school. Maybe you have one bully and then you have all the rest of the kids that just laughs. And look and laugh. Point and laugh. Or just look down upon you. Interesting. All this was... wait. Yeah, the landlord tell us that we must leave. All this was set going by Marfa Petrovna, who managed to slander Donia and throw dirt at her in every family. She knows everyone in the neighborhood, and that month she was continually coming into town, and as she is rather talkative and found gossiping about her family affairs, and particularly of complaining to all and each of her husband, which is not at all right. Which is not at all right. So in short time, she had spread her story not only in the town, but over the whole surrounding district. Wow, it made me ill. But Donia bore it better than I did. And if only you could have seen how she endured it all and tried to comfort me and cheer me up. She is an angel. But by God's mercy, our sufferings were cut short. Mr. Svidrigailov returned to his senses and repented, and probably feeling sorry for Donia, he laid before Marfa Petrovna a complete and unmistakable proof of Donia's innocence in the form of a letter Donia had been forced to write and give to him, before Marfa Petrovna came upon them in the garden. This letter, which remained in Mr. Svidrigailnov's hands after her departure, she had written to refuse personal explanation and secret interviews, for which he had been entreating her. You refused him, eh? In that letter she reproached him with great heat and indignation for the baseness of his behavior in regards to Marfa Petrovna, reminding him that he was the father and the head of a family, and telling him how infamous it was of him to torment and make unhappy a defenseless girl, unhappy enough already, Indeed, dear Rodya, the letter was so nobly and touchingly written that I sobbed when I read it, and to this day I cannot read it without tears. Wait. How did she get a hand of the letter? Isn't that a plot hole, right? The father of the house had the letter, showed it to the wife. How did the letter somehow come back in their possession so the mother could read the letter? Moreover, the evidence of the servants too cleared Donia's reputation. They had seen and known a great deal more than Mr. Svedrigailov had himself supposed, as indeed is always the case with servants. Marfa Petrovna was completely taken aback and again crushed, as she said herself to us. She showed up and showed them the letter and gave it to them. But she was completely convinced of Donia's innocence. The very next day, being Sunday, she went straight to the cathedral, knelt down and prayed with tears to Our Lady to give her strength to bear this new trial and to do her duty. Then she came straight from the cathedral to us, told us the whole story, wept bitterly, and fully penitent. There we go. Penitent? She embraced Donia and besought her to forgive her. The same morning, without any delay, she went around to all the houses in the town, and everywhere, shedding tears, she asserted in the most flattering terms Donia's innocence and the nobility of her feelings and her behavior. What was more, she showed and read to everyone the letter in Donia's own handwriting to Mr. Svedrigailov, and even allowed them to take copies of it. Alright, no plot holes. Which I must say I think was superfluous. Indeed. In this way she was busy for several days, driving about the whole town, because some people had taken offense through the precedence having been given to others. And therefore they had to take turns, so that every house she was expected before she arrived, and in everyone knew that on such and such a day Marfa Petrovna would be reading the letter in such and such a place, and people assembled for every reading of it. Even many who had heard it several times already, both in their own houses and in other people's. Gossip, the gossip, the juicy gossip, eh? I can imagine super juicy gossip. I just feel spoilt for choice in comparison to like their drama. I can get any drama, I've got my pick of the litter, right? There's drama to be found everywhere online. Without actual people having to get hurt. Yeah, actual people don't have to get hurt to vicariously live these dramas. In my opinion, a very great deal of all of this was unnecessary. That's Marfa Petrovna's character. Miss her character. Anyway, she succeeded in completely re-establishing Donia's reputation, and the whole ignominy. It's ignominy. State of dishonor. Alright, one mistake brought shame to all of his family. All this shame. Family feeling shame. I think that is something... Oh, I was gonna say that ignominy like that as being a thing, bringing shame to the family, is something better left in the past. But I can also see it as a useful tool, right, for enforcing norms. Right, rather than laws, you have ignominy, or making behaviors. But on the other hand, fucking shame doesn't help anyone. Right, especially in this situation, right? Neither one, right? Shame, there is like a lot of emotions involved. He just really got a super crush on this woman, this girl. Nowadays, maybe she would be a gold digger and just take the opportunity at hand. Do the gold diggery. Without the shame, taking the opportunity when it presents itself. Yeah, fuck all norms. Well, don't fuck all norms, but get my point. Just because an idea is tenacious doesn't make it worthy. To quote Tim Minchin. Great fucking song. Re-establishing Donia's reputation and the whole ignominy of this affair rested as indelible disgrace upon her husband, as the only person to blame. So that I really begin to feel sorry for him. It was really treating the crazy fellow too harshly. Yeah. Donia was at once asked to give lessons in several families, but she refused. All of a sudden, everyone began to treat her with marked respect, and all this did much to bring about the event by which one may say our whole fortunes are now transformed. You must know, dear Rodya, that Donia has a suitor, and that she has already consented to marry him. I hasten to tell you about the matter, and though it has been arranged without asking your consent, I think you will not be aggrieved with me or with your sister on that account, for you will see that we could not wait and put off our decision till we heard from you. Blasmus says, okay, night. Ah, nice to see you. Yeah, good night, Blasmus. Sleep tight, and see you next time. See you next time indeed. Oh, it's lunchtime. Soon. How far is it left by this? Still far to go. I want to finish this endless fucking paragraph. Endless paragraph. This is unacceptable, isn't it? Look at it. Unacceptable. Alright. And you could not have judged all the facts without being on the spot. This was how it happened. Alright, so we went from one story, and now we're going to a second story, actually. I want to see here. And this is how it happened. Let's just see if we take this and just add a bookmark. I want to see how far it is to go. Not terribly. Not terribly. Well, let's keep on going. Alright. This was how it happened. He is already of the rank of counselor. Fyodor something, and is distantly related to Marfa Petrovna, who has been very active in bringing the match about. It began with his expressing through her his desire to make our acquaintance. He was properly received, drank coffee with us, and the very next day he sent us a letter in which he very courteously made an offer and begged for a speedy and decided answer. That was fast. He is a very busy man and he's in a great hurry to get to Petersburg, so that every moment is precious to him. At first, of course, we were greatly surprised, as it had all happened so quickly and unexpectedly. We thought and talked it over the whole day. He is a well-to-do man to be depended upon. He has 2 posts in the government and has already made his fortune. It is true that he is 45 years old, but he is of a fairly prepossessing appearance and might still be thought attractive by women. And he is altogether a very respectable and presentable man, only he seems a little morose and somewhat conceited. But possibly that may only be the impression he makes at first sight. And be aware, dear Rodya, when he comes to Petersburg, as he shortly will do, beware of the judging him too hastily and severely, as your way is. If there is anything you do not like in him at first sight, I give you this warning, although I feel sure that he will make a favorable impression upon you. Moreover, in order to understand any man, one must be deliberate and careful to avoid forming prejudices and mistaken ideas. Nice! That's in the same letter as all that bullying and that prejudice that was forced upon them, which are very difficult to correct and get over afterwards. And Pyotr Petrovich, judging by many indications, is thoroughly estimable man. Alright. At his first visit, indeed, he told us that he was a practical man, but still he shares, as he expressed it, many of the convictions of our most rising generation. And he is an opponent of all prejudices. Nice. He said a good deal more, for he seems a little conceited and likes to be listened to. But this is scarcely a vice. I, of course, understand very little of it, but Dunya explained it to me. Though he is not a man of great education, he is clever and seems to be good-natured. You know your sister's character, Rodya. She is resolute, sensible, patient, and a generous girl. But she has a passionate heart, as I know very well. Of course, there is no great love either on this side or on hers, on his or hers. But Donia is a clever girl and has the heart of an angel, and will make it her duty to make her husband happy, who will on his side make her happiness his care. Of that we have no good reason to doubt, though it must be admitted that the matter has been arranged in great haste. Besides, he is a man of great prudence, and he will see to be sure of himself that his own happiness will be the more secure. The happier Donia is with him. And as for some defects of character, for some habits, and even certain differences of opinion, which indeed are inevitable even in the happiest of marriages. Donia has said that, as regards all that, she relies on herself, that there is nothing to be uneasy about, and that she is ready to put up with a great deal, if only their future relationship can be an honorable and straightforward one. He struck me, for instance, at first rather abrupt, but that may well come from his being an outspoken man, and that is no doubt how it is. For instance, his second visit, after he had received Donia's consent, in the course of conversation he declared that before making Donia's acquaintance, he had made up his mind to marry a girl of good reputation, without dowry, above all one who had experienced poverty, because, as he explained, a man ought not to be indebted to his wife, but that it is better for a wife to look upon her husband as her benefactor. That's that would be called sexist today. That attitude, right? I must add that he expressed it more nicely and politely than I have done, for I have forgotten his actual phrases and only remember the meaning. And besides, it was obviously not said of design, but slipped out of the heat of conversation, so that he tried afterwards to correct himself and smooth it over. It was still sexist. Well, it was sexist back then as well, eh? But all the same, it did not strike me as somewhat rude. It did strike me as somewhat rude, and I said so afterwards to Donia, but Donia was vexed and answered that words are not deeds, and that of course it is perfectly true. Words are not deeds. Good point. Donia did not sleep all night before she made up her mind, and thinking that I was asleep, she got out of her bed and was walking up and down the room all night. At last she knelt down before the icon and prayed long and fervently, and in the morning she told me that she had decided. Oh wow, I got far today. We went from line 1000 to 1500 to 6%. I wonder if I'm getting better at this. Right? I think that was it. Yeah. 500 pages. Lines. Sorry, lines. There was not a lot of empty lines, because there was fucking long paragraph. Right. Good job. It feels good being back, actually. Been a couple of days now where there have been no crime and punishment. Alright. But thanks for hanging out today. I had a good time. Hope you did as well. And see you next time. Cheers.